Most parents give up on screen addiction recovery after 2 weeks because they think the tantrums and resistance mean it's not working. They see their child still asking for screens, still having meltdowns, and assume their child is different or that recovery is impossible. But what if I told you that what feels like failure is actually normal progress, and that real transformation follows a predictable timeline that most parents never see because they quit too early? The hardest part isn't the first week. It's month 2 when you think nothing is changing. At the end of this video, I'll share the exact monthly timeline and the one critical mindset shift that determines whether families succeed or give up. Understanding the month-by-month recovery timeline is crucial because screen addiction recovery in young children doesn't follow the linear progress parents expect. Unlike adult habit change, children's brains go through distinct phases of resistance, adaptation, and integration that can look like steps backward even when they're moving forward. Without knowing what's normal, parents interpret temporary setbacks as permanent failures. Month 1 is what I call the detox phase. The first 2 weeks involve the intense withdrawal-like symptoms you've probably heard about: tantrums, complaints of boredom, and desperate attempts to negotiate screen time. But weeks 3 and 4 bring what surprises most parents: brief moments of independent play followed by regression. Your child might play creatively for 20 minutes, then have their worst meltdown yet. This isn't failure. It's their brain practicing new neural pathways while still defaulting to old patterns under stress. Month 2 is the testing phase and often feels like the hardest month, even though it's actually when the most important changes are happening. Your child seems to accept screen limits most of the time, then suddenly escalates their resistance. They might go 3 days without asking for screens, then spend an entire afternoon pleading and negotiating. Parents think they're moving backward, but this is actually your child's brain testing whether these new boundaries are permanent or if persistence will eventually break them down. Here's your actionable insight. Create what I call a progress journal during month 2, specifically to track the subtle improvements you'll miss if you only focus on the dramatic moments. Note things like how long your child plays independently before asking for entertainment, how quickly they recover from disappointment about screen limits, whether they're showing interest in activities they previously ignored, and how their sleep and mood patterns are changing. These small shifts are actually massive neurological changes that predict long-term success. Month 3 brings the integration phase, where you'll see the most obvious improvements. Independent play periods become longer and more creative. Your child starts suggesting non-screen activities when they're bored. Transitions become easier, and tantrums about screen limits become rare and shorter. This is when other people start commenting on how engaged and creative your child seems compared to their screen-using peers. The critical mindset shift that determines success is understanding that recovery isn't about eliminating all desire for screens. It's about developing a healthy relationship where screens become one option among many rather than the only satisfying option. Even in month 6, your child might still prefer screens when given a choice, but they won't seem desperate or dysregulated when screens aren't available. Month 4 through 6 is what I call the stabilization phase. Your child can handle occasional screen time without it triggering a return to addictive patterns. They might enjoy 30 minutes of educational content, then easily transition to other activities. Their creativity, attention span, and emotional regulation continue improving, but the changes become more subtle and consistent rather than dramatic. The biggest mistake parents make is expecting linear progress. Some days in month 4 will look worse than days in month 1. Your child might have a screen-focused meltdown that makes you question whether any progress has occurred. This is completely normal and doesn't indicate failure. Recovery involves your child's brain strengthening new pathways while old pathways gradually weaken, and stress or tiredness can temporarily reactivate old patterns. By month 6, most families report that screen time is no longer a source of daily conflict. Children this age have developed genuine interests in building, creating, storytelling, and exploring that provide satisfaction equal to or greater than screen entertainment. They can handle social situations where other children have unlimited screen access without feeling deprived or resentful. The timeline varies based on several factors: how much screen time your child was getting before recovery began, their age, their individual temperament, and how consistently boundaries are maintained across all caregivers. Younger children often show improvements faster because their neural pathways are less established, but they also need more emotional support during the process. Parents who successfully navigate all 6 months have realistic expectations about the timeline and focus on long-term transformation rather than daily compliance. They understand that resistance and setbacks are part of recovery, not evidence that recovery isn't working. Most importantly, they track progress in ways that recognize subtle improvements rather than only noticing dramatic changes. The child who emerges after 6 months of screen addiction recovery has developed skills that serve them for life: the ability to generate their own entertainment, resilience when facing boredom or frustration, creativity that comes from internal motivation rather than external stimulation, and emotional regulation skills that don't depend on digital devices. Comment below and let me know what you are currently struggling with relating to your kid's obsession with screens. Click the link or check my bio to discover an ebook that can give you all the skills that you need to stop your child's screen addiction.